Howdy, KC Nation. How are we doing tonight? Sorry about that. A little bit of a stumble there, but what a way to start our night. And I think what a way, I guess, to start off the week. I guess we should say it's a Wednesday. We didn't have anything last week, but definitely recharged our batteries this weekend, and we are happy to be back. As always, my name is Kaleb, and my wonderful co-hosts are going to join me here shortly. Firstly, with the one and only Alexander Searle. Alex, you're not racing this weekend. I don't think you're going to be on site this weekend either, but I mean, how are we feeling? You got some rest last weekend. I hope, I believe you were coaching. Some of your kids were getting some wins out at Homestead. So we got
four wins.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
4 wins. Yeah, they killed it.
Hey, that's how you get it done.
Yeah, no, the boys killed it. They all did a great job at Homestead. The Riza guys were awesome. They listened to me. They did exactly what they needed to do, and some of them don't even have to lift with me. They know what they're doing. So really proud of all the kids that I was coaching, even the ones that we got pretty much everybody on the podium at some point. So that was awesome. Like you said, got a little bit of rest this week. I'm not racing this weekend. Unfortunately, not going to be with you guys either. So I will be tuning in. I'll be doing nothing. So I'll be tuning in all weekend long, keep an eye on the points. I know we're going to spend a lot of the time tonight talking about the championship battles in all classes, especially the 2 pro classes. So super excited for this weekend. And I think there's not a better track, I'd say, or not many better tracks to end it off on than Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle is definitely a good one, and a guy who has a lot of experience driving at Newcastle here joins us in a couple of moments. Emory Lida, the one and only Emory here. No headset, no headphones. Apparently, we are. I guess going straight into it, right? Computer audio. That's what we got. Got to do what you got to do, man.
It sounds great.
For context, I'm hopeful I get the headset on at some point over the course of the night. But if you can't tell behind me, what used to be a full bookshelf and everything is now gone. So I've been in the process of moving out of my apartment in the last day or so. And I don't have the piece. I can't find the piece to connect my headphones into the computer. So at the moment, trying to get the AirPods configured as like a secondary option, but we're straight right in with the Pile USB microphone and no headsets for the time being.
Hey, so where are we moving to next semester then?
Different apartment in Chapel Hill. I'm not like Alex. If anyone needs an apartment in Gainesville, Florida,
please.
Alex has one on the market. I trust this guy with business deals with my whole life. He got me a chai latte. He lived up to his deal down in Florida this year. No one I trust more with business. I'm sure that he will get you a great deal on that apartment.
Please.
That he is
5 minutes off campus.
Looks fantastic. If you want Bole, if you want Chipotle, if you want to go see the Florida Gators go 7-5 this season, Alex is the place for you.
Hey,
I appreciate that.
Alex definitely has a place. I believe only $848 a month. Is that correct?
Something like that.
Something like that. If you're looking for a place in Gainesville, Florida, Alex has got exactly
$845
what you're
plus
looking
utilities.
For. That's crazy.
Is it true that you and I live in the same place?
That is
Caleb?
True. I'm not going to disclose, but I do live in the same family of apartments, the exact same.
That's pretty funny.
Townhome place in College Station, Texas. So,
Caleb, is your apartment for sale?
No, mine is not for sale. I'm staying in the same place because I actually like it. It's an easy way to get out, and I still need it because I'm on campus next semester. So yeah, but. I mean,
anything is for sale at the right price,
Anything could be for sale at the right price. But
shout out school
from Caleb Vieska in College Station.
Yeah,
you might have to pour a bit more money than Alex's deal is taking, but any apartment is for sale. Mine is already sadly going to be gone from the union staff in about a week's time. So
wow,
yeah, no chance for anyone to buy this one, but I don't think you want it anyways.
Yeah, but with all that being said, we have a very, small go-kart race going on this weekend, boys, at Newcastle Motorsports Park. And when I say small, I mean it's going to be pretty big. We have already a lot of entries this weekend for the SKUSA Summernats. We are looking at about 30 plus in X30 and what looks to be, I think 20 plus, about like 25 in X30 Pro. And what looks to be, if I'm not mistaken, the
35,
biggest.
I think, right now.
35 in X30?
KZ.
So I was getting there. The biggest shifter field in the last couple years outside of Summernats and outside of Rock Vegas.
Biggest regular season shifter race since Spring Nats in 2016,
That's
to
awesome.
be exact.
So
That is so cool.
it's we're in for what's going to be a good weekend, and I was getting texts up until this past week, I believe Monday, of people telling me they were going and people, getting out there for the summer nationals. And that's where Kart Chaser started. I believe their first event started with the video side of things. And that's where Xander and Trevor, I guess, started also. We go back 4 years later.
2020.
Huh?
Summernats 2020, the Summerfest, actually.
Summerfest, yeah. That's
Yep.
what I said.
Alex, you were there. You were there, right?
I think for the first couple of rounds, that was the year Bryson won in
Yeah.
X30. Yeah, that's when he swept.
Correct.
It was karting's version of the bubble, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the full 2 weeks in
Well,
Indiana.
because karting was one of the first sports to get back going during COVID. Like we were ahead of everybody, and so it was actually cool to see. And I think, shout out COVID, I guess, because it brought Kart Chaser. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty cool. But
Yes.
not shout out COVID though.
Yeah. So we're back there 4 years later, and I mean it looks a whole lot different. All of us have joined. Myself, I guess the newest. Actually, I think I joined before Alex, but newest to the, I guess, the on-air stuff. I joined a weekend before Alex. Funny enough, but anyways, enough of the competition stuff. We're excited. It's going to be a good weekend. Danny Formal's making his debut with Sodi. That's, I guess, one of the big things coming out of this weekend. A lot of championship battles, and we did have some graphics that we will upload here shortly, but the championship battles do look very, very close coming into this weekend. And, it's anybody's game. I believe championship is pretty close in KA senior and all the senior classes. So K senior is pretty close. Finnegan Bailiff leading at the moment. And then it's close in X30, obviously, with 5 drivers well within a shot to win. 5 drivers within 100 points. Ryan Norberg sits in fifth. Brandon Carr in fourth. Massimino in third. Jones in second. And in first is Diego Ramos. Then you go to KZ with 3 drivers within, I guess, a realistic shot of the championship within Jacob Gulick. Shoot, I'm forgetting the other names. Matias Morgado and AJ Myers. I don't know how I'm forgetting that, but AJ was supposed to be on the show tonight. Unfortunately, driving to Indiana. But boys, what are you guys excited for this weekend? What are we looking forward to for this weekend, Emory?
Yeah, I think we got to start with the shifter battle first and foremost. Because Matias Morgado riding a 8-race win streak in the U.S. On the shifter side of things. He's been dominant in terms of result. I think over the course of the weekend, though, it's been pretty competitive on the SKUSA side of things. He had to wait till the final to really beat Danny down in Orlando. It was a close battle between him, Kremers, and Formal all weekend long until the final. And then the same thing in Cincinnati. He qualified 6th. He was 6th to 2nd in Heat 1, I believe 6th to 3rd in Heat 2. And then finally in the final, he was able to pass AJ about midway through the race and come away with that victory. So it has not been smooth sailing for Matias Morgado through the heats and through qualifying. He hasn't gotten the extra points that some of the other guys have gotten. And as a result, the points battle is still open. So while Morgado is still probably the favorite coming into the weekend with 320 points on offer and a 60-point lead, it's going to be an exciting battle on that end, as well as AJ Myers has been dominant around Newcastle. So there's a lot of intrigue in the shifter battle, but I think that's kind of where it starts. And then the X30 battle, which we'll get into a bit later, I mean, that one is kind of a free-for-all with 5 drivers with a realistic shot in the title heading into the last weekends.
Alex?
Yeah, Emory said it best. I think we're in for a treat, especially the pro classes. It's very rare that you see this in recent memory. This is not common, as we lose Emory, I think, for a little bit there, but hopefully he can get that mic thing sorted. Nonetheless, in the shifter category alone, it's really a 2-headed race, right? Gulick, Wick, kind of there. I mean, 150 back for Gulick, 180 for Wick. But between AJ and Mateus, it's 63 and a half. And like what Emory was saying, where with AJ, he seems to be a little bit more consistent throughout a weekend. Mateus, it tends to take him the weekend to get to that point where he is just not dominant, but very, very fast in the finals. And so like in Cincinnati, qualified, outside the top 5, had to work his way through in the pre-final and the heats and whatnot, or the pre-final. Um, and so coming into the final, he was able to pass AJ, but AJ actually came away with a pretty decent points haul because he was consistent throughout the weekend. So I think even though you're going into a race in Newcastle, which is an AJ Myers track, it's also a Mateus track. He's been very fast around here throughout his career. I think a 63.5 point lead is not safe if you're Mateus. You can't afford to have bad qualifying, and you can't afford to have a bad pre-final. Like, there's a very high chance that we enter the final in a close to draw situation where whoever beats the other guy wins, and that's just for shifter. Like Emory said, next 30, this is a complete free for all. I mean, from first down to fifth is really where the battle commences, right? With the Tulio, Santi Fernandez, they're about 180, 190 back. It's a little bit too far for a weekend's worth of work. But for the top five, this is anybody's race. This would be kind of, I'd say, Ryan's to lose if it wasn't for the Cincinnati ordeal where he broke down in the feature race. So we now have Diego Ramos leading by 46 points, 67 down to Pauly, 72 to Brandon Carr, then it's 97 to Ryan. That's your top five. Really, all that separates these top fives is whoever beats the other guy is going to probably leapfrog each other in the races. So qualifying is going to be super important. The pre-final is going to be important, and the final is going to be the most important race that they've probably driven in, if you discount Summernats, I'd say in a long time for these guys, because it decides who's a Pro Tour champion, which not a lot of drivers can actually say that in the X30 Pro Senior category, let alone the KZ class. We've had, Ryan win it quite a few times, but this is the first time in a while that we've seen Ryan on the back foot now in fifth. To me, we'll get into this more throughout the show, as who we think's in the best spot, who we think is going to win the whole thing. But right now, with the top five being Ramos, Jones, Massimino, Brandon Carr, Norberg, five drivers that are very fast around Newcastle. It's one of those tracks, just like Trackhouse, just like Homestead, where most of the drivers have driven here quite a lot throughout their career. So I think it opens up the door for a pretty close race and a pretty spread out, not a spread out field, a pretty close field all the way down from about 10th to 15th in especially a stacked X30 class. So I think we're in for a show. It's really going to be whoever beats the other, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you were kind of mentioning a lot, like the fact of previous years and Ryan Norberg being up there in the past and always being in the fight. This year, it's just kind of felt different since the start because of how different it looked whenever we came into the year. Right, we had the pro show starting this year with a lot of money on the line this year for the championship, 10 grand for the championship winner. So that's a lot of money. That's kind of for your top guys. I guess it still means a lot. That's a lot of money that they'd love to put in their pocket. And not only that, but it goes all the way down to 8th place, if I'm not mistaken here, Alex. I think it's a grand down to 8th place.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of money that you can win.
Actually,
year.
it's down to 10th, I believe.
Okay, so I mean, still, there's a lot of money, and for next year, you get a SKUSA Pro Tour entry and tires. Everybody all the way like we were saying, all the way down to 8th, kind of is or to 10th. Sorry, is just it's a lot of money, and a big change in the sport happened this year when we arrived at Orlando, and it was different. We weren't sure if it was going to work. We weren't sure if how it would have stuck after the first round, and I mean, we look back at it now a couple of months later, 4 months later, and what we are where we are now, and it's honestly, I've liked it a lot better, added, kind of a different sense. I don't know what you've thought as the year as a whole. And I'm kind of talking about it as like a year, like wrap type of thing, because we are at the end of the season for SKUSA. You know what I mean? We still have rounds for stars and we still have rounds for USPKS, but we're at the end of the SKUSA Pro Tour. Next up is Vegas, the biggest event of the year in Las Vegas. That's the next time we'll see the SKUSA show, I guess you could say, come back out. And we're not sure how it's going to go with the pros stuff and stuff like that. Track, they just announced that SKUSA just announced that they were looking for the track and whatnot. But again, I mean, it's been different this year. It's felt different. You need to be on it since you roll off the truck. You need to be on it during the qualifying session, because you're going to easily find yourself starting 13th at best if you're not top 6 in that first qualifying session that you go out on, because of the Super Bowl now. And it just has added that little bit of excitement and that little bit more of, I would say, excitement to it. Brought something different to the drivers, brought something different to the table, and brought something different as a whole. We've seen a lot of, engine failures this year because of the longer main events that SKUSA has provided with the pro show. So a lot has changed, and it's challenged everyone. It's challenged us. It's challenged drivers. It's challenged mechanics. Challenged teams, and I think it's kind of a fresh change that our sport needed.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think Pro Show has lived up to the hype so far. I know there's been different iterations of the format throughout the year in all series, or the ones that have acquired the Pro Show, being the Stars and SKUSA. But I think it's brought a level of entertainment up from what it already is as the sport of karting. For the pro guys, it's given them a little more of a platform. I think it's made their job easier, I would say. I mean, I know there's been feedback from all sides, but I think when you can kind of help your team throughout the day and then race later on, it's better. I know there's been, again, different forms. The schedule has been changed throughout the year, so we've been trying things. But overall, the feedback after Orlando was, I say 50-50, but nothing negative, right? It was anything negative was to help us make it better, which was actually a positive. We could take it into a positive, and that's how throughout the year we've made the format better and better and better. And I mean, I can't wait to see what we do, for Super Nationals and onward into 2025, 26, when hopefully the sport is going to continue to grow with this pro show format. And I think it's part as to why we have such a good championship battle heading into the last race.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of arguing with us at the beginning of the year. Some of the drivers, and I'll say Harley Keeble especially was one of those, right? He was telling us, he was like, man, we only have 3 rounds now. This is, we should do one big championship. And there's so many ideas, Sean Bailiff related to it, of doing one big championship, kind of like Supercross does it, or having, I guess, different aspects of it, and adding different stuff to it. But whenever you look at the SKUSA Pro Tour, whenever you're racing for this much money and you look at the World Championships over in Europe, they give you 1 round at the World Championships to crown who's going to be the world champion. Here in the U.S. for, some of the big series and what's becoming a national champion and a U.S. national champion with all these international guys coming over, they give you 3 rounds. It used to be 6. 3 rounds, 3 weekends, and you're either on it or you're not, and that's the sad part about it. But it puts, like we were saying, puts a lot of testing and puts a lot of effort into the entire aspect of racing here in the U.S. now. And we have a lot of guys coming from Australia, Gabe Bianca, Sam Dicker. All those guys want to come over here, want the competition, and they want to race for the money that happens here. And it's quite unique, and I think this year has definitely been a good stepping stone, nonetheless. Emory, I know me and Alex have been kind of talking about this, but we were kind of just summarizing the pro show as a year, kind of like a summary of, I guess, the SKUSA Pro Tour this year and how it's been different to, I guess, past years.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to make sure you guys can hear me on this
No,
one.
we're good. Yeah, you got you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, sorry. Apologies for the slight absence there. I was feverishly scrambling to get my microphone set up and everything, but we got it set up. And yeah, as far as the pro show goes, I mean, I think Alex had a good point. Like at the start of the year, it was kind of 50-50, the feedback in Orlando. And I really think, like, ultimately, with anything that's new, you're going to have people that have some resistance to it, right? And look, what we've seen over the course of the year is the main events, for the most part, at least on the SKUSA side, have been really good. And it's not like it's the same as it's been day to day. Like from Friday to Sunday in Cincinnati, we saw a lot of kind of evolution from the field. We saw a lot of guys in shifter kind of get better, a lot of guys get worse. On the X30 side of things, it's allowed for the opportunity of the competition to where one bad race, one bad final, is tough to overcome. And while some might say, yeah, that's not how it should be, look, like you mentioned, Caleb, ultimately we crown world champions off of one race oftentimes. We have the biggest race of the year is a one-off event that pays the most money. I don't see why in a 3-race championship where we already have so many different series going on, we already have so many different races and so many chances to kind of get yourself to the upper echelon, why it's an issue to only have 3 races. And I think that the format that we've done has allowed for the weekend to progress to where Friday to Saturday to Sunday are different days with different opportunities for people to be fast. And again, it rewards consistency. It rewards ultimate pace, as we've seen with winning from Morgado, kind of carrying him in the championship, even without the heat race results that are absolutely on top. But to me, it's put up the situation where you head into Newcastle now, and like, if you're anyone in that top 5, you have to be good throughout the heats. You have to be good in qualifying, and you don't get a chance to like get a do-over. You don't get a second day where it's a clean slate. And I think that's how motorsports should be. That's how it is at a lot of other places throughout the world and a lot of different types of racing. And look, I mean, these guys are pros. We've seen really high level of racing this year on the Pro Tour, and I think that it's been a very good thing for the sport, and we've seen a lot of good racing as a result of it.
Yeah, so that was the I guess you can say first part of our show where we kind of summarized everything else. After this quick commercial break, we're going to go over the championship battles in X30 on, you know, what we think, some predictions that we got going on, who's close, who we think needs a lot of work to do and kind of needs to step up their game in both X30 and KZ. But that's all coming your way here in a couple of moments' time.
Colin, I need a new 219 chain. I need a 77 tooth sprocket. I need some more chain lube, and I need it probably as soon as like tomorrow. Dude, are you even listening? Like, we need this to run this weekend.
Want anything else?
What do you mean?
I already got it in the car on Acceleration Kart Racing's online store, bro. All orders over $200 get free shipping.
Oh, throw in a set of tires.
Done.
Everything you need, all in one place and shipped to your door for free on orders of $200 or more. Exclusions apply. Shop AKR.com.
Welcome back to KC Grid Talk on this fine Wednesday evening. The, I guess, eve before the SKUSA Summer Nationals. SKUSA Summer Nationals. Sorry, I don't know why that's such a handful there. But, yeah, before the SKUSA Summer Nationals, I guess, goes live this weekend on Saturday with all the semi-pro classes and all the pro classes as we get set to go and race for a whole lot of money. But, you know, when we talk about money, when we talk about championship, there are a couple of guys who are really close in some, I guess you could say, kind of their first national, I guess, championship victory. And one of those guys that comes to mind, I guess, talking about it is Hayden Jones, who's very, very close to what could be a maiden national championship here this weekend in X30 Pro, and a whole lot of money for Hayden. You know, he's kind of kept his nose clean every single race. He had a podium, and I believe he finished top 5 in the second round, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, he's you know, been super quiet under the radar and found his way up there a lot of the time. So he's definitely going to be one of the drivers to watch this weekend, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. I think you kind of alluded to it. I mean, I guess we're gonna talk about the X30 stuff first here. Ramos leads the points, and I think Ramos has a very good chance. Newcastle's a great track for him. It seems to suit his driving style. I think he has like the right, you know, body for Newcastle. Usually, it favors a guy who's a little bit, you know, more my height, so to speak. But I think most of the guys, actually everybody in the top 5, besides maybe Brandon Carr, sits pretty low in the seat. So that shouldn't be an issue for those guys. But again, a track that he's been very good at, PSL's been very strong at throughout, you know, their years they've come here. But to me, Hayden Jones is my pick to win the championship. I think he is the, you know, definition of what this championship was all about, right? It is stay consistent, keep your nose out of it, and then be there at the end. And that's exactly what he's done. He's put himself in a position now, second in the points behind Ramos, And I think right now he's I don't want to say in the catbird seat because that's what Diego's in, but I think Hayden Jones is the track that he's notoriously been very, very fast at. You look back to, I believe, what was it, 21 when he was very strong here, or 22?
22.
22. Yeah, he was very, very strong around here. And that really hasn't changed. That's been the story for his career. He's been very strong. But so too is Ramos, really so too is Pauly, Carr at some points, but then Ryan obviously is incredibly quick around here. So you cannot count out Ryan. I think Ryan's a bit of an outsider here just because as long as you keep your nose clean, it's going to be hard to, jump about 100 points. So I think I like Hayden Jones here to win the championship. Pauly's a sleeper because Pauly right now is in a position to do what, really nobody's ever done. And that's win, the 125 class in 3 different championships. I know he's in the mix in PKS. He's 400 plus points back from Garrison, but a bad race from Garrison, you're back in the mix. And then he's right there in the OKN class. So Pauly right now, he's kind of riding a high. This has been a really, really good year for Pauly and the BGR crew as a whole. So I think Pauly's got a shot here as well. Brandon Carr's been quick. Again, Ryan, a driver that I think without the DNF that you have at Cincinnati, this is his championship to lose. But
It was a DQ in Cincinnati.
DQ.
No,
DNF.
It was classified as a DQ because
yeah,
he lost the camera in that main event.
Yep.
Yeah, but so no points, right? So no points is no bueno in a championship. And so with that, you sit 5th. I think if that doesn't happen, he is the clear leader in the championship, not by a whole lot, but still he'd have a decent lead. But he's not. This part of a 3-race championship, you can't afford to have mistakes, can't afford to have anything go wrong, and that's just part of racing. Again, you mentioned it earlier, Kaleb. That was really one of the only knocks that we had earlier on in the year was, oh, why is only 3 races? Well, it's part of racing, right? You shouldn't need to have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 races to decide a champion unless it's just one big championship. But because we have so many different national series, I think SKUSA has done a very good job with the races that we've done for the pro guys, having 3. And so, yeah, the format's worked out great. I think, again, I'm going to reiterate my point. I think with this pro show format, it is why we've had the 2 pro classes have the closest or one of the closest championship battles that we have out of all the championships heading into the final race. So, again, that's enough of me talking, but I think Hayden Jones is my pick for this weekend's race to win the championship.
Emory?
Look, I think when you look at Newcastle, right, there's a few names that come to mind. We saw Diego Ramos in 2022 was really 2023 at USPKS. He was blistering fast as well. He's got the advantage in the points. I think that is kind of the most important things at this point because 45 points or 46 points, excuse me, is a lot when it comes to being able to hang on to that championship lead. Like that comes down to a couple of points or a couple of positions in each of the heat races and 1 position in the main event, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a little bit of a cushion. It's basically an 1/8 of the points that are on offer. So Ramos has a bit of a comfortable lead here. Hayden, Pauly, and Carr, I think all 3 of them have a realistic-ish shot. I think Carr, in terms of pace, has struggled to be on it consistently all year. He's had his moments, certainly down in Miami and at the end of the weekends in Cincinnati and in Orlando. But like we've seen throughout the year and like we talked about on the show, ultimately, with this pro show format, you kind of have to be on it from the get-go. You have to be there in qualifying because otherwise you're just bleeding points through the heat races. And I think that's been a little bit of Brandon Carr's downfall. And then you look back at Ryan Norberg in the 5th spot, and if it wasn't for the DNF/DQ at the last race, Norberg would be the most obvious pick to win the championship just because of the pace he's had in Orlando was better than anyone else. The pace he had at Cincinnati was better than anyone else outside of maybe Kai Hunter in the final. And Newcastle, one of the tracks that he would know pretty well. So for me, Ryan should have been the pick, but 97.5 points is a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot, but one way to kind of think about this is Santi Fernandez has lost about the last 2 races, and that is without Fernandez ever really cracking the top 7. So for Norberg to claw back the 90.5 points from Ramos, he would essentially need to be 5+ places ahead of Norberg or ahead of Ramos in the final, as well as 2 to 3 spots ahead of him throughout the 2 heats, in addition to an extra couple in addition to beating Carr, Pauly, and Jones by a decent amount. So all that's to say, I think Diego Ramos is in the best spot in the championship. Hayden is going to be very good at Newcastle. He's been good in the past there as well. But ultimately, I think that Diego Ramos has to be the guy to beat so far this weekend.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Alex, you really made a really good point. That if you want to win the championship here this weekend, like we talked about it, you need to roll off the truck really good. You need to roll off and you need to be on it from the get go. Sadly, that hasn't been the case for some of these drivers. It hasn't been the case for Brandon Carr, unfortunately. It's taken him a while to get up there. For Pauly as well, he missed the Fast Six last time in his qualifying group. Qualified, I believe, 13th out of I think it was 13th overall, 13th or 14th. Didn't get into the Super Bowl, so unfortunate for Pauly Massimino. But it's a lot of work. Is it doable? Yeah. Hayden Jones as well. I mean, he's definitely always up there, but I think he's going to need a little bit more to really beat Diego Ramos here this weekend, who like you guys said, to me, he's a favorite. He's sitting in the best position, and yeah, he's definitely my favorite going into this weekend in X30 Pro. But we move on to Shifter, and we will look at that battle. Matias Morgado, your leader with 560.5 points, and he does have 2 wins to his name. We're all looking at it, and if you were somebody looking at it from the outside in, and you see Matias has 2 main event wins already at the SKUSA Pro Tour, you're kind of scratching your head. Why is the championship battle this close? Why are we so close for, I guess, the championship? And it's because Matias unfortunately hasn't had the best, I guess you could say, results in the heat races, hasn't been winning the heat races. AJ was a guy who won a couple of heat races at Cincinnati. So in my eyes, you're coming into a track that you're so good at. AJ Myers is definitely my favorite going into this weekend in the KZ category.
Yeah, I think the thing with Morgado, though, is any track he's gone to so far this year, I mean, down in Miami at the start of the year, he lost the first couple rounds, but then rounds 3 and 4, that's one of Isenberg's best tracks. It's a track that he had thousands of laps on in a shifter. Morgado cleared him pretty easily in that race, and obviously Danny as well. And Formal, again, another guy that has a lot of laps around Miami throughout his career. So Morgado did well there. In Orlando, it looked like at the start, Formal and Kremers both had the edge on him. And again, for Kremers, that's one of his stronger tracks, thinking back to single speed success that he had there in his first year over in the States in 2022. So that's another track where Morgado took a little bit of time to get down, but ultimately was able to come away with a pretty convincing win in the final after chasing down Danny and making the last lap pass. And again, the points battle, it's a lot closer than people might think. It's really not enough to make it to where Morgado has it comfortably in hand at all. But like with Ramos, he has the advantage of he doesn't have to be perfect in the heats. He's built up a big enough gap that AJ can take 3 to 4 spots off of him in each heat and still be in a winner-take-all position in the final. Whereas for AJ, one bad heat, if he has an issue like he had in Stars Cincinnati for the Clash at the Club for qualifying, that's his championship over. There's no overcoming that. Even if he finishes P1 in the final, he'll lose so many points for the heat. Same thing goes for sort of one bad heat result. So the margin of error for AJ is a lot more thin than it is for Morgado. And for Gulick, even less. I mean, he's 166 points back. At this point, too far back, I would say, to even really be in contention. So it's Morgado versus AJ. AJ has the advantage at Newcastle, but I think Morgado has the edge overall for the season. I think he'll take the win and the championship.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Emory. Usually I try to be the one that's like, okay, no, I'm gonna have a hot take here, but I think Matias, it's gonna be closer than we think in shifter, and I know it's close on points. 63.5 it's pretty tight for any sort of point standings into the last race, but I'm expecting more of the same, right? I think AJ is gonna come out pretty hot here, a track that he's very quick at. So too is Matias, but this is different. This is a shifter. So I expect, still a decent qualifying performance from Matias, but just like Cincinnati, where it's going to be another, weekend of him having to kind of climb his way through in the heat races, But as long as, like you said, as long as he can just stay in that top 5 for the heats, heading into the final, you're in a winner-take-all situation. I like Mateus's odds, and at that point on a Sunday feature race, there's really not been a better guy this year than Mateus Morgado since round 3 at Homestead. And why bet against him now with the championship on the line? So I think it's simple as that. I think it's going to be very tight. I think it's going to come down to that Sunday race. But I like Morgado here.
Yeah, and here I guess to wrap up the championship battles, Emory, if I'm not mistaken, is it the top 8 in it for the money, or is it all the way down to 10?
10.
So it's the
Okay.
top 10 that are in there. I'm trying to pull up the graphic from the post Cincinnati standings that we got on the Instagram, which unfortunately, with the way that my computer is working currently, I can't get that downloaded into PDF format. So we're having all sorts of technical issues on the lightest side of things tonight. But yeah, it's the top 10 in X30. I think it's actually a really interesting battle that we're looking at in the points, because you look at the likes of Austin Garrison, he is outside of the leader circle, which again, $1,000 in prize money plus entry into the 2024 or 2025 Pro Tour. That is a lot. That is to the point where you're talking suddenly about a championship that isn't going to be, or a championship battle where like that's the difference between a guy like Garrison possibly running versus not running next year. A team like Speed Concepts bringing their guy in and having sort of a guaranteed pro driver in the field versus, hey, maybe now suddenly it's not worth the investment. Harley Keeble's another one that finds himself right on the edge of the points battle, kind of needing that extra bit of boost to get a good finishing position. Same goes for Nick Terlecki on the X30 side as well. So there's a lot of big names here that ultimately have kind of been not a little bit hung out to dry, honestly, with the way that this championship battle has gone down over the course of the last few weeks. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting battle for sure. And I think, again, it's one of the kind of main storylines that we're looking at over the course of the weekend, because again, the battle for the championship points is going to be the main kind of headline, obviously, but there's really battles all the way through the field that will have a direct impact on who we see in the field next year. And also $1,000 is $1,000. So there's a lot on the line here.
No, for sure. Any little bit of, I guess, cash makes a big difference. So a lot of drivers, like Emory was saying, kind of finding themselves out in Pro Shifter. Billy Musgrave, one of those drivers who finds himself outside, kind of looking in. Justin White, another one. Charlie Steins in 12th. Ian Quinn in 14th. So that's money that would help those guys out a lot. Georgia Carrara 15th. And that's just without without running round number 2 for Giorgio.
Yeah.
For Terlecki, like you were saying, 11th, Cooper Lau 12th, Donovan Bonilla 13th, Henry Lepard 14th, and Josh Holtz 15th. Those are guys that we expect to see back next year. But I mean, again, every little bit of I guess cash or entry prize or entry money definitely makes a big difference for some of these guys that definitely find themselves in. And one of the big things that we talked, and I think Xander talked about this too on his show a couple of nights ago, was the way that Kai Hunter, with only running one round, has found himself kind of in the money spot or in the money positions, whereas guys like Bonilla finds himself outside, with running the full series, or other guys like Holtz finding with a lot of work to do. So points was one thing that Xander talked about, and just want to get your guys' thoughts about it.
Yeah, and also the impact of mechanical failure too, because like Bonilla in Orlando suffered a brake failure that took him out of a podium contention. It's very realistic that Bonilla could have been in somewhat of a similar situation as his teammate Hayden Jones here, where he's got an outside shot at the championship, but he lost upwards of 160 points just from that one failure. So that's how thin the margins can be. And again, like when you look, here's the shifter graphic that I was able to get pulled up. Shout out to Kaleb on that one for doing it straight off of just calling him out. But you can see there on the plus side, Formal, a guy that missed a race, he's an 8th. that will give the Sodi team a little bit of confidence heading into this weekend. Even if it doesn't go great, he still has a bit of a buffer to make the leader circle, the circle of champions, as they call it in the pro show or the pro tour. And then you have Nemowitz as well as Saraceno on the good. And then on the negative side, again, you can have a mix of guys that just simply lacked pace this year and guys that missed a race or had mechanical issues in one of the two races. Musgrave being one of those. Ian Quinn's had his issues over the course of the year as well. A rough start to the year, but you look down the list, and I think it's really interesting to see the different battles sort of form. And like I was mentioning, on the X30 side, you've really got, I think, a little bit of a closer battle, actually, because you've got kind of the bigger names that are there that are going to be fighting to try to stay in that circle. I misspoke on Garrison. He's just barely on the right side of the circle, as he's in 9th in the championship. Kai Hunter's in 8th. Harley Keeble's in 10th. But in general, this Pro X30 field and this shifter field, with how stacked it is this weekend, if you get in a scuffle anywhere, you get any sort of big issue, you're going to suddenly see that these guys are fighting for a possible spot in the leader circle. They have a lot more to lose than they would in a normal year. In a normal year, if you get outside of the top 5 in points, suddenly you're like, what's the point in racing this anymore? We're not going to get a trophy. We're not going to get points. We're not really going to have too much of a chance at winning any sort of noticeable prize. But now with the Circle of Champions, there's actual sort of retention year over year. There's money on the line. And again, it makes every race, every session more critical, and we'll be able to cover it more down through the field over the course of the weekend to kind of get the stories that maybe would be missed otherwise if we didn't have the Circle of Champions and we didn't have the ability to cover it like we do.
Yeah, no,
I think you actually made a really good point there with the Circle of Champions and what this kind of brings to karting. Because like you mentioned, I know I've done it before, and I'm sure you've done it before, Emory, too, where you head into the last race of the championship or 2 races to go, and you're out of the points. What's the point, right? But it adds another incentive, and I think that's awesome. Because at the end of the day, I know racing's expensive, but that's especially why $1,000 is $1,000. People, no matter if you're a pro guy, if you're a paying guy, right? You want that money, you want the free entry. Everything counts, and so just that extra incentive, I think it's a great point you made. It brings drivers back to want to race, even if you're out of the points. So yeah, I just wanted to shout that point out.
Yeah, no, both very, very good points by the two of you guys. But lastly here, I guess the last little bit of our preview is the track layout as we take a look at it now. 18 corners, I guess you could say, here this weekend on what's going to be, I think, a pretty good layout for racing nonetheless. I think it's a layout that we've already seen this year, if I'm not mistaken. So,
the traditional stars layout.
Yeah. So the same traditional stars layout, the same, I guess, the same layout that's going to be this weekend. And I mean, it provided good racing last time out. Nick Terlecki obviously ran away with it there, but you have a very different field getting set to go green here. And for some of these drivers, their first time at Newcastle Motorsports Park this time out. But thoughts, comments, Emory?
Yeah, it's a layout so that we've seen this layout run, I believe, 8 or 9 times on the national scene at this point. Every year Stars does it. USPKS did it for 2 years in a row, or maybe just 1 year in 2021 with Route 66 as well that year running it. And we've seen Route run it every year since then as well on the regional side of things. And honestly, it provides really good racing. It's the first time that Pro Tour is running it. In the past, they've run the reverse layout. We saw that in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. We saw the Super Mile layout be run in the first half of the 2020 year as well as in 2019. To me, I've always said the Super Mile using the turn 3 or turn 4 cut through is my favorite layout of Newcastle personally. But this one is also a lot of fun. The Monza makes it a little bit less of a drafting fest in turns 2 and 3. It's a very fast layout. I think with the new MG Red tire compounds, the amount of grip that we've seen laid down this year, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on rolling speed with this layout. But I think it's a really good layout for racing. And everyone that's talked about Newcastle being a drafting fest in the past and really horsepower dependent, this track kind of goes against that a little bit. The front straightaway is still very long, still very engine dependent, but now you no longer have those two straightaways. You have more heavy braking zones, a lot of overtaking opportunities, and I think we're going to get treated to a really good race this year.
I think that final sentence is what sums it up, right? You still have there's some sort of draft in every track, whether it's a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 scale. I think putting that Monza there, it eliminates part of the drafting. You're still going to have it into 1. You're going to have it into 11, right? And then you're going to have potentially a move into 15. 15 is a hard corner to pass. The faster you get up, the faster the kart is. But nonetheless, and 8 as well is a pretty decent opportunity to make a move, especially going this way as opposed to the other layout. Going downhill, it makes it a little bit trickier in the braking, but I think it's downhill into an uphill section into 9 and 10. But nonetheless, I think, like you said, this layout's awesome. So many opportunities to pass. This track is one of the best that we go to for shifter, I'd say, every single year. And that's also kind of intrigues me for that championship battle. But for the X30 guys, again, with how many passing opportunities that we have, that's why I started the show with saying there's not really many better tracks that I would like to go to in the final race of a championship than Newcastle because of the draft, the combination of draft, how many laps people have around this place. So there's really no excuse for, you don't have to test that much around this place because you have so much data already from years past. And then the overtaking opportunities. So I think this layout, it's one of the best that Newcastle has to offer.
Yeah. So it's for sure going to be a very good layout for racing. I mean, we saw it play out earlier this year. It's just scary, that some guys were so quick here a couple of weeks ago. AJ Myers coming to mind, swept on this exact layout, and kind of scary to think about what he's going to do here this weekend. So we'll see how it all plays out. But me personally, it raced well a couple of, a month ago. So I'm excited to see us go back to Newcastle Motorsports Park. And again, Alex said there's no better place than to finish the SKUSA Pro Tour out than Newcastle Motorsports Park. But boys, it's a short preview. We're going to let the racing do the talking here this weekend. But what are we looking forward to this weekend? What are we excited about? And some predictions or final closing thoughts here, Emory.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, I think it's going to be a lot of exciting racing this weekend. And actually, I just had a thought come to mind when we were looking at the layout. The last time that we saw an X30 race run on that layout in 2021 at USPKS, we saw Arias Dukmejian win the race. Now, that's been a while ago, granted, but Dukmejian that weekend was racing for Trinity. So with different track conditions, that race was run in May. This will be run in July. There's some differences to be found, but ultimately the TKG boys, between that and the Stars racing that they've done, they'll have the setup pretty well dialed in, I would imagine. And I think this is one of those tracks where, as a driver, it takes time to build up into because there's not the runoff that there is on the normal Newcastle layout. The braking zones require you to kind of trust the kart and be ultra confident in your roll speed. And this is very much a driver's track. It's one that you can't really get away with just letting yourself, not being on the edge. And so for me, this track, we're going to see more mistakes this weekend. I think we saw it in Cincinnati where people were pushing it a little bit too far, making mistakes more often than usual. I think this tire kind of incentivizes that. The offline lack of grip sort of makes it that way. But I think ultimately this track layout kind of brings up the ultra competitive racing, a lot of on the line driving. And I think we're going to get set for some good battling. Also, on the layout, one last thing too. This is probably one of the few tracks I feel like I've passed it just about every corner and been past it just about every corner as well. Alex was saying into turn 15 was kind of less of a passing opportunity in a high speed kart. I actually feel like it's a little bit of the opposite because you have an actual halfway of a braking / lift zone there in an X30, whereas in a KA, you basically send it into the first half of that corner and just pray it hangs on. So I think we're going to see that's a good passing zone. The scale house corner is a good passing zone. Cell tower is a good passing zone. The pit entry corner is a good passing zone if you want to stuff someone. I-70 is always a good passing zone. And one last thing, into the last corner, they don't have the start finish line at after the final 90-degree corner. It's actually right after the S's, as you can see. So turn 17 is going to be the second half of that S section, which to me makes the run to the line a little bit crazier, because we might see the old strategy that we love and know at Newcastle of going flat out through the last corner, going way off the grass and just praying to chuck it onto the line. We might see that be feasible now with the start finish line kind of being really not far after the corner exit, and a place that you can go flat out into the corner, you just won't make it out.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to, Emory. I mean, I've seen it multiple occasions through 17, and it's awesome to watch. I'm not recommending anybody do it, but I think, like you said, now with the start finish line being there, it's a feasible option as long as you can set up properly for 17. But usually, if you're doing that option, it's because you're defending from a guy behind you. But I think that's another point that we didn't touch on, is actually what makes this layout so awesome is that start finish line. If it comes down to a 1v1, or if you're on a 5-car train, it makes that final 3 corners really sketchy to be the leader, because no matter what, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Defend to the 15, they're going to pass you in the 16. If you don't defend, you're probably going to be passed at the 15. But it all comes down to 17, which is also a passable corner. I've actually been passed there probably more than 16, weirdly enough, because if you can kind of screw somebody if you pass them on the inside of 17. And especially on the last lap, doesn't matter how bad your exit is. So I think we're in for awesome racing, and that's just 3 of the corners. It's a good point you made. I've probably been passed here in every corner as well at some point in my life. So yeah, I'm excited for the championship battles. I think both are gonna come down to the final race. I don't think anyone's really gonna have it wrapped up, which it's almost impossible to have it wrapped up for Diego or for Mateus heading into Sunday, unless a bunch of DNFs happen. But I think it's gonna come down to, especially in shifter, whoever beats the other guy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we're all excited. Full crew is back in town. David Land is back this weekend with us. He's going to be
shot at Alex here.
Sorry, he's going to be
know,
alongside me.
Full
Alex,
crew.
Alex is the only one who won't be on site this weekend. Sadly, he was supposed to be racing, and then that fell through. So he's going to be watching at home like a fan. That's going to feel definitely very strange for Alex, but I know you'll see some stuff that we won't see.
You better be in the live chat.
Yeah,
I will be. I'll make Kaleb laugh while he's announcing.
I'll make sure to tell Alex to send me some questions to ask and stuff.
I can ban you from the YouTube comment section at any moment.
Emory's going to be working behind the scenes this weekend, so should be a good weekend.
Yeah, no Simon Sykes this weekend either, unfortunately.
So It's not a full crew.
No, yeah,
it's
not a
I might
full crew.
I might actually have to go to Cracker Barrel this time.
Hey, Cracker Barrel is very much slept on. That's exactly where we go every time.
My two main allies are gone this weekend, so we might be cooked.
Yeah,
it's over. I think Cracker Barrel is properly slept on.
Yeah. So all that stuff is going to be up for debate this weekend, but I'm back on air doing interviews this weekend. Emory Lida is behind the scenes. Alex will be at home, but we're all super excited of what's going to be a great weekend of racing. This was episode number 20, so we'll give a round of applause to that, getting into the 20s. So that's exciting. But what's more exciting is a little go-kart race going on in Indianapolis here this weekend. For myself, Kaleb Yeska, Emory Lida, and Alexander Searle, we thank you guys for joining us here tonight for episode number 20, and we'll see you next week when we debrief the SKUSA Summer Nationals.